In this video we're going to look at improving the modulation possibilities with Ableton's LFOs. We're going to build an effects rack which takes one LFO and modulates it with two others to produce some more interesting shapes, some more complex LFO shapes, and to improve our modulation possibilities within the DAW. First we'll have a listen, and then I'll explain how the rack works, and then finally at the end, as always, how you can put this rack together yourself. I'll explain quickly what we have. I have a drift here playing a tone. I hope this tone isn't going to drive everybody crazy by the end of this video, but I've tried to find the best tone possible. Maybe I should show you, I'm modulating here quite simply the shape of the sine wave. That's the only thing being modulated in drift. Then we have the effects rack here, which is built up, comprises three LFOs. This one here, LFO, is the control modulation source for drift. So basically this LFO is used to modulate everything we want to. It's our modulation source. The other two LFOs, which I've named Mod 1 and Mod 2, are set up to control this LFO in various ways, which we'll get to in a second. We'll just turn this down. So anything we want to modulate, any instrument, any sample or whatever, that would be done from here. We would select this and then attach it to the controller parameter we want to modulate. These two are simply modulation sources. Okay, so what do we have here? We have the blue here, effectively a map to all the controls of our LFO. We have the offset, we have LFO shape here, you can look at. I can change the shape of the LFO, I can change the rate. This is in quantized to musical divisions at the moment. We're set to 1 bar, so I can change that, change the rate, I can change the depth. Basically all of these controls are mapped here, so we have control over our primary LFO. Set this back to 84. If we want to, we can also come out of this musical quantization values and go into Hertz. That option exists. So as I say, smoothing, jitter, we can smooth. There we go. So that's the blue. Then we have the orange here corresponds to Mod 1 and the red to Mod 2. Now the function of Mod 1 is very simple. I have control here over shape. I have control of the rate here, also in musical divisions, currently at 1 bar. And then I have this Mod 1 on. So above 50, this turns the modulation on here. And all this is modulating. It's this hold function down here on the LFO. So let's turn it on and see what happens. I turn it on now. I have a sine wave. So every 1 bar, it's activating this hold function, which then freezes this shape in its current position. So you see now we have this bar generated. If I increase the frequency, then we start to grab more and more hold positions. Let's go back again. If I change the shape, let's go to an up, then that also affects the shape of the LFO here. So I have various ways by holding this button at various time intervals of creating different shapes. If I increase the rate of our primary LFO, and you'll see this effect. So you have one section held and then one section played back. If I change the shape, let's go to something like a random. I increase the rate here. So I think you can understand what's going on here. I'm holding this LFO here at a certain position for a certain amount of time. At the moment it's random. And that gives me various modulation possibilities, infinite, effectively. So as I change this one here, we have a down, and I change the rate here. If I go to the maximum rate on this one, and then slowly bring it down, see the change. Okay, so let's put this back to a sine. Let's put this back to 1 bar. This one back to 1 bar as well. Now, that's what's happening here with this LFO. This LFO is controlling this depth function here. So the depth of the modulation. So let's switch this one on. If I increase the depth here, well, let's just have a look. Maybe we can actually turn this one off first. Oops, sorry. Turn that one off. So this is no longer modulating, it's flat. So we can see the effect of this. If I turn the depth on here, I'm modulating this depth value. Again, this is also in musical division, so I can change waveforms, I can change rates. A second possibility to alter the shape, and again I can adjust the rate on here. A second possibility then to alter the shape of this LFO waveform. Now, let's put this on random. And then let's introduce this LFO connected to the hold here. Now let's change the shape of this as well to random. Reduce the rate. And it's on random. Let's change the rate here. So we're getting these very interesting and complex waveform shapes. So yeah, it's a playoff between these two here. Change the shape to something more sensible. Sine. Increase the rate. So we get these ever evolving LFO shapes. That's the modulation. Let's go back to something simple. And that's effectively what's going on. We're controlling these two here to generate ever more complex LFO shapes. Let's have another example. We can adjust the depth here, so we don't get so much impact from this LFO. Let's set that to, let's try down. One more example. We'll set this one to square. We'll put this one on a fast rate. Let's have that every 16th. Let's set this one here to every bar. Speed the rate up here. And because we're in musical divisions here, musical quantization, we can create these very interesting rhythms. Anyway, that's what's going on. We also have the possibility here, if we want to simply randomize these functions. This one here, flashing here, we leave that at 0, that's set to 0. That's basically the mapping for this hold here. We'll come to that in the build. It's just a workaround to allow you to modulate this function. Yeah, but as I say, we also have the possibility to randomize. Let's try. There we go. Generate these random shapes, waveforms. Okay, anyway, let's have a look how this is put together. It's not very complicated. It's actually very simple, but it allows you to generate this very powerful LFO function. So I've kept my original audio effects rack here. Find that audio effects rack, drop one in. You'll end up with something like this with no names. Use these buttons just to expand to 16. So that's the first thing I have in here. Secondly, I have an instance of drift here in the background so that we can hear something once we've set this up. It goes very quickly. It's quite a simple build. We're going to need 3 LFOs. Drop those in very quickly. That again. There we go. Right, okay, so we'll rename these. Mod 1. Mod 2. Just so we don't get confused. And all we need to do now is put these on 100. Do a little bit of mapping. I have in the macro, the first macro named hold set 0. This is a workaround for the fact that if you try to map this hold function, it doesn't work. So what we have to do, the workaround is to map this hold function here to this macro, close that, and then map this to the macro itself, and now that works fine. The next thing we need to do is to map mod 2 to the depth here. That's set up. And finally, we just need to go around and map the rest of our macros here. So we'll do that quickly. The blue ones are this LFO here, LFO offset. Map that here. The shape. The rate we will leave for a second. We'll do the depth, and the LFO sync we'll leave for a second. They're a little bit special. LFO phase will map, jitter, smooth, and finally this little R down here, retrig, we'll map that. Let's do mod 1 shape here. Mod 1 rate, map here, and this one here, mod 1 50 on, that's the depth here. If this goes above 50, then it activates this hold here. Then we have mod 2 shape here, mod 2 rate here, and mod 2 depth here. Now, I left this one here, the rate and the hertz sync. You have to be a little bit careful here. So we will map here to this one here, the LFO hertz sync. We'll map all 3 of these. 1, 2, and 3. Map that. Now we'll map this rate here and map that here. Now, if we come out of here, the rate's mapped and this function here, that's mapped. But when we go into, you notice when we go into sync, the rates are no longer mapped. So they're mapped for one side, but not for the other. So we then have to go back into our mapping again, map the rate to here again, map the rate to this one here again, and finally this rate here to the rate here. And now when we come out of here, if we change from sync to hertz, then we have control of both. Okay, that's a little trick you have to watch out for. Everything's set up then. We just need to map our LFO to something on drift. Maybe we'll turn that down a little. So let's map this to, let's open this up. Let's map this one here to, we'll do the shape. We will map the second, let's make those 100% as well. We'll map the second one to the filter frequency and the third to the release time. And we'll keep our fingers very well crossed that something comes out of this. Turn the volume down a little bit. Okay, let's see what we have. It's a little bit chaotic. Interesting. I have got one I made earlier here in my snapshots. Okay, that's it. We're all built. Have a go yourselves. See what you can get out of it. It's a very useful and powerful tool for modulating within the Ableton environment. As always, enjoy your day. Take care, and hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.